One at a time, and we'll get the job done. Y'all know what to say. On three. 1, 2, 3.
And the home of the Jets.
Good evening, everybody, at a special time of 8 o'clock because it's my mom's birthday today. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to have dinner first and then talk Jets with my good friend Ian, who I hope is feeling better. This may be a coughing contest, dude. Can I have a cough like you do?
Yeah, bro. I was watching your stream, Jets Jags, and you're talking about the cough drops and everything. I'm like, bro, we're living like the same. We're in the same situation.
So I hope you're feeling a little bit better. There's all kinds of crazy colds going around. So when I know things are bad when you're not doing content. If I go on your channel, I'm like, wait a minute, nothing new. I'm like, what's going on here? It must be like an earthquake. But you had the flu?
Yeah, dude. So long story short, I went to a show up in Orlando on Wednesday night. Thursday night, I was over at my girlfriend's place. I just could not stop coughing. So I'm like, all right, it's a little weird. Woke up Friday after not really sleeping all that much. And it was horrible. Bro, I have not been this sick in so long. Yep. And yeah, I'm still not 100%, but yeah, ended up going to the doctor about like 4 or 5 days after. And they're like, oh, it's the flu and this and that. So yeah. So kind of in that so the Microfox, the show is actually in Orlando, so that's where I think I got it, so I'm not 100% sure.
Damn, Orlando. Well, I'm in Jersey. I got a cold too, so maybe it's something going around. But we had a victory Monday yesterday, but I kind of want to focus more on the general manager interviews because now they're starting to pick up, and now we have actual news. And the really cool thing about talking to you is you do a lot of research on it. You make videos about each candidate. So who better to discuss the candidates than you? Because I don't know anything, dude. I'm just a guy. I'm a fan. I look up to these big time content creators to give me information I need so I can make my uneducated decisions, start yelling about things. So the first guy was Thomas Dimitroff, who I actually like, because if you're looking, the criteria for your general manager, in my eyes, is I want a guy that's been there, done that. I don't want a first-time general manager. I want a guy that's established that could come in with a vision, a blueprint, and said, I've already done it once. I've learned from my mistakes, but I also know what works in the NFL. Dimitroff, two-time executive of the year, did a lot of great things to the Falcons. What is your evaluation of him, man? Are you glad they're actually interviewing him?
Yeah, man, I really like Dimitroff. I mean, like if you're the New York Jets right now, after everybody just continues to talk poorly about the job, talk poorly about ownership, no one's going to want the job. It's the New York Jets. They've been a disaster, whatever. It's just, I feel like there's a new story that comes out like every month about this team. And then, God forbid you turn on, the national sports media is just, constantly just taking shots at this team. And so for the team to because I believe they just announced it themselves. It wasn't like a Schefter report or anything.
Yep.
They just dropped it on their own social media, right? The Jets interviewed, or, we just completed the interview with Thomas Dimitroff. Bro, that's a solid candidate, man. Like I was fired up when I saw that. Like you said, dude, like two-time executive of the year. He's got his team to the Super Bowl. I mean, you could go down the list of all the good players that he's drafted throughout the years, including figuring out the quarterback position with Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, fixing the offensive line, Jake Matthews. There was a lot of talented players that Dimitroff brought in and also signed too as well.
Yep.
They were always competitive. Even in like the down years of the Atlanta Falcons, they were never just like completely irrelevant, like how the Jets are now, or like the Giants or the Raiders, where they're just just not even competitive.
Yep.
Personally, I think the downfall of Dimitroff was first off, never being able to find a pass rusher.
Mm-hmm.
But you can argue the Falcons are still searching for a pass rusher, so but still he's the general manager. And you just kind of felt like, when he was let go, There was just a lot of dead money. I think the Falcons started like 0-5 or 0-6 or something. They just canned Dan Quinn and Dimitrov like right at the same time. But I mean, like you said, man, like Dimitrov he's a guy with that GM experience. So he's going to come in and obviously, like understand where he went wrong before in the past. You can make the same argument with all these, former head coaches, Brian Flores, Rex Ryan, all these different guys that we've been talking about. These are all smart people. They can look back and say like, I screwed up here. I wish I did this a little bit differently. If I get another shot, I'm going to make sure that, I'm really going to, make sure that I'm not going to screw that area up. So I was a big fan of that post.
Yeah, and the thing is too, there is no perfect slam dunk candidate, because if the guy's unemployed now, he's unemployed for a reason. But you got to figure out, what are you looking for in a general manager? And there's no guarantee once you hire him he's going to be great or bad. It happens as it plays out. But you have a level of confidence in what he's accomplished in the past. He's got an excellent resume. I think it'd be a respectable hire where you're like, all right, it makes a lot of sense. And if you look at some of the coaches that are out there, they want to work for an established GM. Like if Vrabel said that, Dimitrov fits that. He really does. It's like, it's not like you're always curious about what the Jets are going to do. The list I'm encouraged by. I'm like, all right, this makes sense. These guys aren't currently employed. You're being proactive. You're getting the interview started now. In the perfect world, if you find one of these guys you like, you get them locked up. Once the season's over, you announce the hire, and then you go into the coaching search. So you're not behind the 8 ball where other teams are, interviewing coaches, and you're still chasing a GM.
Yeah, and also to kind of piggyback off of that, if you don't like the candidates, right? Let's just say Dimitrov bombed the interview. It sucked. It did not go well. Well, now the Jets don't have to waste time after the year. They can just say, hey, let's just cross the name off respectively and just keep it moving. As opposed to just sitting on their hands, waiting around. We also, heard a couple other names who I'm sure you're going to, bring up here, but I'm happy that the Jets are being proactive here, talking to people, reaching out and actually completing interviews. And it's not just like pipe dreams, like, oh yeah, we're going to schedule one eventually and we're going to get to it. It's like, no, these things are happening, which is, one of the benefits from firing your current general manager and Joe Douglas in the middle of the season. You now have this kind of opportunity to talk to whoever you want. Well, whoever you want that's not on an NFL team, obviously.
Yeah, but I like their mindset where they have a plan in place. Obviously, the 33rd team's helping them, but the plan in place, these are legitimate guys, and that's all I'm looking for at this point. Like I said, we were all told Joe Douglas was the next best thing to ever create an NFL front office, and you see what happened there. So there's no slam dunks, but you're encouraged. The next guy is John Robinson, who's interesting because obviously you think John Robinson, you think Mike Vrabel, you think, all right, pair them back up. Who knows? They like each other, they don't. But then all of a sudden, the next thing is, well, he blew it with A.J. Brown. So it's like, what is your take on John Robinson?
I'm higher on Dimitrov than I am with Robinson. Now, you can make a lot of the same arguments, right? Got his team to the playoffs, drafted a handful of good players, Jeffrey Simmons, Kevin Byard, drafted A.J. Brown in round 2. Like John Robinson's not horrible. Like his career record's pretty good. It's like light years better than Joe Douglas's.
Yep.
Like he has playoff success. Those Titans teams had identities, but I think one thing that's really interesting, one thing I love doing is talking to fans and asking them questions because they know better than, like, if you throw on the TV, everyone just like raves about how good of a roster the Jets have and Joe Douglas did great and the Jets are dysfunctional. But it's like, no, if you talk to Jets fans, it's like, oh no, we got a lot of 1-year deals, a lot of dead money, a lot of veterans, and this thing is just a mess. So when because I reached out to a couple Titans fans and they all said the same thing. They're like, bro, when he got fired, everyone was pumped up. Like the team just had no depth. The recent drafts sucked. Trading away AJ Brown, like voluntarily blowing up the team, like, and the team was actually pretty good, and really just kind of like leaving Mike Vrabel stranded.
Yep. After
getting rid of all these veteran players, of course, contracts and financials and stuff, come into play. But to kind of summarize it, I don't think John Robinson would be the worst hire. I don't think we would, take 5 steps backwards if we were to hire John Robinson. But I think there's probably, 3, 4, 5 guys I'd rather have in front of them. But that's just me. I'm not saying I'm right here. It's just my.
Well, Dante, first of all, thank you very much, man. Says, why do people think teaming Vrabel with Johnson a good idea? Isn't Robinson the guy that traded A.J. Brown and pissed Vrabel off? I don't think he wants to work with him again. And that's like everybody wants to put together, pieces of the puzzle. X and Y, boom, we got Z. But I think they're also looking at what Vrabel said, where he wants to work for an established, veteran general manager. So Robinson potentially could fit that. But like you said, there could have been some, maybe some pissing contests or some power struggles there, or at the end they didn't get along. And that's like, you know what? We have to go our separate ways.
Yeah, dude. And if you think back to when John Robinson was fired, because the Titans did that thing where they fired the GM before the coach. And when Vrabel was asked about it, he like, I don't know what went on behind the scenes internally, how he felt, but he did not seem like someone who was bothered by it all that much. It was just like, hey, it is what it is.
Yep.
Hopefully the next guy's going to come in and, step up. Obviously not verbatim, but that was the vibe. It was just like, hey, it is what it is. It wasn't like this massive, like, oh, I'm losing my best friend or anything, or, what are we doing? It wasn't like that at all. It almost kind of seemed like Vrabel was for it. So,
yeah. Christopher, thank you very much. Most of my family is Giant fans, dude. I'm the lone wolf here, the sad Jet fan. Every Christmas Eve when the Giants beat us, and I had to go to dinner all depressed and stuff like that. The next name is Louis Riddick, who is interesting because you look at, he's a big personality. You see him all over ESPN, a lot of hot takes, a lot of intelligent draft evaluations, draft takes, very opinionated, but he, director of pro personnel, but he hasn't been that legitimate general manager. You're like, all right, he's done it before. Good candidate, interesting name, but does he fit your criteria, what you're looking for as the next general manager of the Jets?
I think he's worth an interview for sure. I mean, Louis Riddick, I feel like is linked to a lot of different jobs.
Yep.
Excuse me. And one thing I actually do like about him is that he is opinionated. Like, I don't know if you were watching last night's game. It was Raiders Falcons. Dude, he was calling certain guys out. He's like, what is going on here? The Raiders don't have any perimeter talent. That's got to be, one of the first things that the Raiders tackle this offseason. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. These, talking about the different quarterback options and stuff for the Raiders. He has kind of that. I mean, it's not like, I don't want to just throw Louis Riddick into the same bucket as like a Mike Mayock and say like TV guy, same person. Yep. Like Louis Riddick, he was the director of pro personnel with the Eagles back at like the end of the Andy Reid era.
Yep.
And then I think he was director of player personnel with Washington before that, in like the mid 2000s. So, and obviously those are really high up in the front office, kind of like right underneath the general manager. So, you listen to him talk, and it's not like I'm personally sitting down and having this like formal interview with the guy. But he sounds informed. He sounds, again, opinionated in how he wants to build a team. And one thing I also do like about, another kind of area, and again, we haven't seen him operate as a GM.
Right.
This is all just assumptions. But one thing I do like about kind of how he talks is that he always has the players' backs. It seems like he will always back the players as opposed to the coaches, which I do like with someone kind of running the show up in the top of, an organization. I think players kind of will look at that, respond well to that, especially in free agent negotiations. If your general manager is kind of a player first scouting background type of guy.
I think the one thing I like about him a lot, other than I think he's well spoken, he's sharp, but he's also, I like his bold. I like his command of his body, like his body language, like the way he handles himself. I think the Jets organization needs. I think the Jets been bullied around, pushed over. They're lost, dazed, and confused. Joe Douglas got eaten alive. I think Riddick comes in on the press conference. If they ask him a question, he's gonna give you an answer, and he's gonna say, this is it. Like, they're not gonna walk around and beat around the bush. And he's gonna be like, this is what I think right here. Like, that level of accountability we haven't seen in a decade. I think he would bring that in there. I think a lot more responsibility, a lot more clear, like a clear, concise path. Now, that path may be the wrong one, but he has conviction in what he's doing. And he clearly communicated, and there's been no gray area. Like, you listen to a talk to. There's no like, well, the guy could be. No, I think this, and this is why I think it. Like it or not, this is the direction we're going. I would love that, dude. That reminds me, not to the same way, but like when Parcells came in here, it was like there was no nonsense, no BS. My way or the highway. This is what we're doing, and this is why. If you don't like it, I generally don't care. That's what the Jets need at general manager and head coach. That's why you want the experienced guy. like you said, he's got a lot of experience, not as a general manager, but he has prominent, experience and quality staffs where you can figure if he's going to take a job, he's going to be more than prepared for it because this is his first chance doing it. And he's been wanting a job. You know what I mean? So he's not going to be like, you know what, let me take a chance. He's going to have a clear-cut blueprint for this.
Another thing too, man, and those are all great points, but another thing too, he has a lot of connections in the league, out of the league. Like he has a lot of different, people he can call, a lot of people that he could rely on. Guys that he's worked with before in the past. I think Louis Riddick would be a really, really interesting hire. Like I said, man, I think you bring up a lot of good points. I like how he's not like beating around the bush. Yep. I felt like every Joe Douglas press conference was the same.
Yep.
It's just like, it's a question for Robert and we'll get to that and stuff like that. With Riddick, man, and again, it's not like he's sitting in that seat right now. He's sitting on ESPN and his job is to talk, so he's going to talk. But it would not be a bad hire. And also, one more thing I wanted to get your thoughts on. You're looking across the landscape of the NFL, right? The available jobs and everything. And with head coach, you could probably rattle off just like a handful. Bears, Saints, Jets, maybe Giants, maybe Raiders, Jaguars, maybe Bengals. I don't know.
Yep.
Maybe Dallas. Who knows how they, finish? There's a lot of different openings when it comes to head coaching jobs. With general manager, though, it looks like Poles is staying in Chicago.
Yep.
Loomis is staying in New Orleans. I think Tom Telesco is going to be staying with the Raiders. I mean, he just got brought in last offseason, I believe. Outside of Trent Baalke, man, there could be 2 GM openings this cycle. So now all of a sudden that GM seat becomes pretty. I mean, because we've talked about, I want to say damn near 10 different candidates since the Joe Douglas firing, man, like Bergonzi and Ed Dodds and Agnew, all these different guys, along with the dudes that the Jets have already interviewed. So if there's, let's just say, 2 GM openings and there's 10 or freaking 12, 15 different candidates, we can really take our time and figure out the best one. And I also think it makes the job more attractive.
It could. It very well could. Terrence Gray, he thinks would be a great GM. Your thoughts?
Yeah. So he's the director of player personnel with the Buffalo Bills. I've heard nothing but great things about him. Just another guy, player background. You look at how Buffalo's ran and operated. It's all about drafting, all about developing players. They can let a guy like Tremaine Edmonds walk, and it's totally fine because they have a 3rd-round pick that can replace him and replace the production like that. I mean, I know a lot of people are talking about the Lions injuries and a lot of teams that are beat up. The Buffalo Bills actually have a lot of injuries as well, and they let just a ton of veterans go. Poyer, Trey White, all these different guys go in the offseason. Stephon Diggs, totally fine, right? Here we are. I think they're going to win out.
So do I.
I'm being honest, and what does that put them at? 14 wins or something? It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, and but see, that's when you have a program. That's when you have a culture. That's when you know what you're doing is working on and off the field. Like today, I was so impressed with Dan Campbell today because you look at the Jets who always justify losing by too many injuries. Woe is me. Maybe next year, maybe this. And he's like, I don't give a F about injuries. We got to find like that mindset. It's like, an injury is a speed bump. Get better. Find somebody else. We still have a job to do, and we're going to do it. And the Jets organization needs that entire mindset from top to bottom. Now, Riddick is really interesting to me. I don't think I saw a couple comments where he's a former player too, which is great, which helps his case. The lack of experience. He's a really interesting hire, and I think a lot of these guys are going to be selective. They're going to put their name out there for the first time. They want it to be an ideal situation where they're going to have their amount of power they want, their saver personnel, the ability to hire their coach, not inherit a coach. Like, you know what? Well, we like this guy. You got to hire him. No, they want to be an ideal scenario. And in the Jets case, if they find a guy they like, they have to give it to him. If he says, listen, I'll take the job, but I want to hire my scouts, my assistant GM, if that's what it means, then do it. Don't say, listen, we like you, but you got to keep Boyer and the strength guy and the nutrition guy. You got to give him full reign to get the guy you want.
100%, dude. 100%. I think, Woody and Chris Johnson specifically, because Tannenbaum and Rick Spielman can only do so much. Woody's going to have that final call. he's going to be the one that's dishing out the contract, the length, the money. He's going to be the one, making that final call. I think it's up to him and also Chris Johnson, right? Because I'm sure he's going to be involved in one way or another. They have to package the Jets as attractive as possible to candidates, whether that's coaching or whether that's general manager. I think, we should just, because we had the Mike Vrabel report today. Personally, I want to hire a GM before a head coach.
Well,
because
I got a question for that. I got a question. And I agree with you. I had a fight with Primetime about this last night. Now, Mike Vrabel is the hot name that everybody, according to a lot of Jet fans, he's the number one candidate. He's the guy everybody wants based on his resume, in terms of being qualified, winning, that hard-nosed guy, physical guy, all that stuff. But he could want a lot of power. Would you be willing to give him full power and say, you know what? We want to make sure we get you in place. We'll get you in place, and then tell us the GM that you want to work with, and we'll make that happen. Would you go that route just to get Vrabel? Or you say, you know what? Listen, man, we gotta do the. I'm not a cart before the horse guy. I hate that idea. I'm like, I think Vrabel is a very good coach. He's not Sean Payton. He's not Harbaugh. He's not none of these guys. So I wouldn't give him that power of an organization. Would you do that?
Man, it's a tough question because here's the issue though, right? The second you do that, the second you hire Mike Vrabel before a general manager, you instantly give the head coach more power than the general manager, which is not how successful teams are built. Exactly. That's not how successful teams want to do business. That's not how well-ran teams operate. Yep. I want the Jets to mimic the Steelers or, the Buffalo Bills or the Baltimore Ravens, these teams out there. And of course you can push back and say, all right, well, the Jets have hired a GM before first and it hasn't worked out. Totally fair. But I think one of the issues that comes up when you give the head coach more power than the general manager, when things don't go well, the GM gets canned first. Yep. And if the GM gets canned first and you're bringing in yet another general manager, well, the coach that you're keeping, who you gave more power to, is now going to have more influence on that next GM. So if things don't work out a following time, now what do? You fire both and you move forward. And I understand that could be a negative way of thinking, like it's not going to work out, which is fair. But we've seen the Jets go down this path before where we have a coach and the coach is, we'll fire Tannenbaum, we'll keep Rex, and now we're bringing in Idzik, and it's just like a weird dynamic. Does the coach boss the general manager around? How much influence does the coach have in the draft war room, right? If it's down to if Vrabel wants a defensive tackle and there's not really a maybe the general manager has a higher grade on a right tackle, does the head coach now override the general manager? It's just weird. So if there was that Jim Harbaugh, if there was that, Sean Payton type of John Harbaugh, right? One of the Andy Reid, one of those types of coaches where they can just come in and boom, right the ship, no questions asked, I would be more open to it. And it's not to say I don't like Vrabel. I mean, obviously he'd be a slam dunk hire. I think he'd be great, but I don't think I would get to the point where I would just sell, here's this really long contract. Here is a ton of money. Here is a ton of power. And now you have to help pick out the general manager.
Yeah. I said, like you said exactly what I thought, man. I'm like, listen, I like Vrabel. I would love to have him, but I'm not going to say, here's 10 years, $12 million a year. You now run the Jets. We trust you to rebuild us and get us right in back direction. I don't want to do that. Like he's not, there's levels to coaching. And that's like the Harbaughs, the Andy Reids, the Sean Paytons. They're just different, dude. They're different levels. Vrabel's good. He's not great. So I'm not willing to just say, you know what, let's blow up our whole process because it's a slam dunk guy that we have to have. He's not a have to have, in my opinion. I want to have the right process for sustained success over 5, 6 years, 7 years. You don't want that 1 year to try to quick fix and make the next year the best year. So it's interesting to see that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, sorry to cut you off. One thing just to add is you got to imagine too, if Vrabel, so for those big dog coaches, Tomlin, Harbaugh, whatever, you feel good in any situation, no matter who the quarterback is, no matter who, the roster, the personnel, or are we rebuilding, or are we supposed to win the division? Does not matter. Those coaches are going to do the job really, really well. With Vrabel, I have questions. Can he rebuild a roster?
Bingo.
I don't know. I feel good about him win now.
Yep.
And I think if the Jets do end up hiring Mike, I just don't see us, moving off of guys. I think we're going to keep Devontae. We'll probably keep Aaron. I don't see the Jets hiring Vrabel and then us saying, okay, we got to move on from all these different vets and try to build through the draft. And it's going to be a 2-year thing. I think if we hire Vrabel, it's going to be like, no, we got to re-sign DJ Reed. We got to try to bring back Morgan Moses and try to essentially run it back.
No, I
Just
completely
my
agree.
guess.
Now, what was your take on the whole Bill Belichick thing where the report initially caught me by surprise? I'm like, wow, that's kind of weird because he literally hates the Jets, and every chance he had, he dumped on the Jets and took shots at even a couple weeks ago with, on McAfee ripping them. But to me, it's like you can do a lot of things behind the scenes that nobody needs to know about. Belichick works in conference, the Jets work in conference, and say, listen, okay, if you're truly interested, fine. I don't care what you said about us in the past. The past is the past. How about we meet and talk somewhere, privately out on some island somewhere nobody's ever going to see us, and you tell us what you think about our organization, how you fix it. I'd be just, you don't even have to say I want to hire you. I'd like to get in front of him and say, how would you fix it? What's your vision? What do you think about Rodgers? What do you think about Devontae Adams? What do you think? Who would you hire as a general manager? Like, tell us how you fix us because we need all the help we can get. Talking to one of the smartest NFL minds of all time can never hurt. To me, that's my opinion. Like, I don't worry about the bad blood. I worry about, like, let's talk about this as adults and see how we can fix things. Do you agree with that? Or you kind of think like, no, this was some nonsense story that I wouldn't even waste my time?
I kind of lean towards that. I just can't see after all these years, man, Belichick personally calling Jets representatives and actually inquiring about the job. And one thing that also doesn't make sense about the article or the report is that if we actually rewind and look at the Schefter report, which was, or actually, I think multiple people reported on it. One of the reasons why Belichick wanted or accepted or kind of moved forward with North Carolina was that he felt as though maybe there isn't going to be an opportunity for the NFL.
Right.
The Jets are obviously an NFL team. So we look at the Athletic report and it's like, oh, we have Belichick reaching out to the Jets, but then it doesn't go anywhere because of this awesome opportunity that came up with North Carolina.
Right.
So just the timing of that they don't, it doesn't make sense. It's clearly two different timetables here.
Yep.
And, after all because I mean, you can, like, I'm sure there's things that you hate, it's one thing to actually hate something.
The Jets.
But then, to publicly clown them over and over and over, year after year after year, and then for him to, call to like with having dead serious interest in becoming the head coach of the New York Jets after all of it. Because it's not like he, some one-time thing or anything like that. Like he's been bashing the Jets for literal years and he does not like them. I think that's one of the reasons why the Jets don't even bother trying to go after.
I would have talked to him, dude. I wouldn't have cared. I would have talked to him. I don't care. You can call me
all. I would, if from the Jets side of it, I would have talked to him. I just don't think that Belichick actually reached out and and maybe he did reach out, but it was like a troll or something like that. I just don't seriously think that he was considering becoming the Jets head coach.
Because look how many times Louis Riddick has ripped the Jets over the years. I mean, like right now, the Jets have been the laughing stock for a long period of time, and rightfully so. So if you're an analyst or involved in the NFL or you're like a commentator, you're going to say things that are negative about the Jets because guess what? They're deserved. It's not this 14 years, no playoffs, dude. So what they're saying is true. So, I mean, I wouldn't like, I'm not saying hire. I'm saying the minute he expressed interest, let's meet and talk. Don't care what you said about me.
But do you actually think he had interest in the job?
I wouldn't. Dude, the minute he says if somebody, because right now it's like everybody talks like agents talk to agents, and they could reach out to the 33rd team, like call Tannenbaum, like, hey man, what's up? Just like, dude, work those angles. Give us a vision. Give us what you're thinking about. Like, I want to, no stone unturned at this point, especially with a great coach. You know what I mean? That's where, like, I get it. He could do whatever he wanted to. I would have met with him. I definitely would, 1000% would have met with him, and say, because like crazier things have happened. But if he makes the thing is the things he tells you, you can compare to what Dimitrov tells you, or Robinson tells you, or Riddick tells you. Like, all right, they're all saying the same thing. They all have a great resume. This is what we have to do. Or if he's so out in left field, you're like, oh, this guy's lost his marbles. You know what I mean? At least it can't hurt.
Yeah, I think Armin has a really good point. That could very well happen, man, or could have happened.
Yeah, I mean, I'm exploring everything. I did, like the reactions were funny. I'm like, listen, we're in no position to turn down anybody at this point. I want it, now, are there any other general managers that you're interested in? I guess the tough thing is you got to wait till the season's over. And then a lot of these guys are a part of playoff teams. Everybody wants guys from the Lions, all these different, your interviews are going to be limited. And the challenge you have is, like you said it perfectly before, there's not a lot of teams looking for general managers. So you know what that means? Once the season's over, they're interviewing head coaches. The Jets in theory shouldn't be doing that because they don't have the front office in place yet. So are there any other general managers out there, minus the guys that we're interviewing now, that are available that we can interview that we haven't discussed yet?
Well, we can interview GM candidates right after the season,
Right.
like Black Monday. Like we could go out and talk to Agnew, Borgonzi, Greenberg, whoever.
Yep.
It's the coaches that we can't
Right.
talk to. So I think the GM search should be pretty streamlined because Douglas was fired, so long ago here. I think, I think let's just throw it out, hypothetical situation here. Giants fire Joe Shane and Brian Daboll after the year. They just continue to be irrelevant and just getting blown off the field for the next 3 weeks. They are so much further behind us. We already have the consulting team. We already have interviews done. We already have a list. We already have multiple people on board helping this team. We already know what we're looking for. Whereas if you fire the GM on that Black Monday, or whatever Sunday night, along with Daboll, now it's like, all right, let's regroup.
I agree.
Now we have to figure out what exactly are we looking for. Let's start reaching out. And the reason why I'm bringing up the Giants here is because as of right now, the Saints need a coach, don't need a GM. Bears need a coach, they don't need a GM. I think the only other team that is going to fire both is the Jaguars, guaranteed.
Yeah.
Giants, maybe. So because of that, because we can talk to, whoever we want right after the season ends, because we already have interviews and, the consultant team is already in place, I think we'll probably have our GM within max a week and a half after the season, so in between the wild card round and the divisional round, I think at the latest we'll have the GM in place.
Yeah, but if you rank those three teams, just say those are the three: Giants, Jags, Jets. The Jets are the third team on that list. If I'm a general manager, the Jets will be the last of those options for me, because the Jaguars, you have Trevor Lawrence, top pick. Giants, you're gonna have a top pick and a very reputable ownership group. Where the Giants may suck forever, but they're a respected NFL team where the owners are respected. They don't have Woody Johnson on their side. They're a classy organization that's been through rough times, but they're always respected. The Jets aren't respected like that. So you have two teams that are probably have a top 3 pick, and one team's got Trevor Lawrence, and then you have the Jets. So if I'm a general manager and the 3 jobs are available, the Jets are the last one I want.
But the good news is there's more than 3 qualified candidates.
True. But the best one, that's true too. But I think the better one, it's like it depends on how you look at it. I would say the Jets aren't, as opposed to those two, are marketable. But you said if there's 10 candidates and 3 jobs, you should get a really good candidate in theory.
Right. I mean, yeah, let's just say Giants get Borgonzi from the Chiefs. Jaguars get, Louis Riddick, or, take your pick on any Ray Agnew. All right, well, we already have, we've been talking about Dimitroff. We've been talking about Riddick and all these different guys. So I seriously think the GM spot is going to be fine. It's the head coaching position that I'm worried about.
So now I like Dimitroff too, man. I'm not gonna lie. I like him. Again, there's no slam dunks. I just go by what I read. You do your research and what your criteria and characteristics are the guy that you want to hire. I don't want a first timer. Riddick is the guy that's kind of making me change my mind a little bit. But other than that, I'm pretty much hell bent against it. The other thing is when you're getting ready to take over a team, you look at what is ownership. That's a whole other story for the Jets because we know what they are. Then it's always ownership, quarterback. What am I inheriting as an owner? What am I inheriting as a quarterback? And that is going to be ultimate debate amongst Jet fans for the next 3 weeks as you watch these games play out, because Aaron Rodgers is now finally healthy. He beat up a bad Jaguars team. Great. But he's playing well. You're seeing the spark of Devontae Adams. You're like, you know what? What could have been? And now we're kind of seeing a little bit like, you know what? He may be our best chance to win next year. But hold on. Let me get it out of your head. Let me just express myself. So he may give us our best chance to win in the short term because there's no better options out there. Woody Johnson says, you know what? I want to sell tickets. I want to sell jerseys. I want to sell wins because 14 years, no playoffs. I want to bring him back. And I'm going to talk to him about it. And when I'm interviewing guys, that's going to be the first, almost cursed. That's the first question they're going to ask. What's the deal with Aaron Rodgers? Do I have say if he comes or goes, or am I inheriting him? That decision and that decision alone is going to change so much for the New York Jets, dude. I honestly believe that. If I come in and do an interview, if I'm Riddick and I say, you know what? What's the deal with Aaron Rodgers? He's coming back. Well, I don't want him back. Well, he's coming back. All right. You have a good day. I'll be on my way. I'm not going to take a job that I don't want with a player I don't want. That's I think was going to be the problem the Jets are going to have right now. If they have that Aaron Rodgers plays 2 more weeks like this, you already see the fans, dude. Like Sunday was so predictable. Before the game started, I called it. I literally called it. The Jets are going to beat the Jaguars. They're going to play very well on offense and be like, we got to run it back. We are back. We are great. No, you're 4-10 with a lot of efficiencies with a very old quarterback that beat a very bad team. But like, this whole Rodgers thing's going to get interesting, dude.
Dude, I think the Rodgers stuff I think it's overblown right now because of the Jaguars game. Mm-hmm. Dude, the Jaguars are horrible. Not to be disrespectful or rude.
They are.
But the Jaguars are terrible. They were flat out horrible with Trevor Lawrence.
Yep.
Now that we played him with Mac Jones and barely won.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I mean, Mac Jones, I understand Mac threw 2 picks, but he threw it like 40-something times. Like, and I hate to say it, but I think the Jets should have some, higher standards than great. We beat the Jaguars, like conveniently right after, we've been mathematically eliminated from the playoffs with their backup quarterback. And now all of a sudden there's talks about running it back. If Rodgers goes out there and beats the Rams and the Bills like this, okay, serious conversation. But let's not freak out and get all crazy. And all right, well, if Rodgers can do this, against.
But to me, he can play well the next 2 weeks. To me, it's still not a serious conversation. The general manager.
I'm with you. But I think right now the talk is, this is the Rodgers and the Adams show now, and they've had weeks to kind of formulate their connection, and it's just longer since the Achilles injury and stuff. I think we just played an absolutely terrible team.
Yep.
That is horrible on defense, and every team throws on this Jaguars defense. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was pumped with the win. I was happy for Devontae and happy for Rodgers. It was cool. It was exciting for sure. But I'm not looking at the Jaguars week 15 game to advance to 4 wins on the year as a deciding factor on if I'm bringing Rodgers back. Because if let's just, because they have to go to Buffalo. I'm going to be at that game.
Mm-hmm.
And if he goes out there and stinks up the joint, or there's, multiple INTs and the Bills just rout the Jets, this conversation is just going to be down the drain.
Yeah, no,
Jaguars game is going to be way past and, just in the rear view.
To me, I'm at the point where I don't want to force anybody to inherit anybody. You commit to me with a vision. If you hire a guy, you're having faith in his football knowledge and his football direction and him rebuilding your program. If he says, I no longer want Rodgers, then he's gone. Like Woody Johnson has no say in this for me. This is what the team thinks. I don't care. It's 14 years, no playoffs. What you think doesn't matter anymore. The changing of the guard now, whole new regime. You know what? There could be a new defensive scheme. Some of your favorite players may not be here anymore. There could be a new scheme on offense. Some of you guys may not be here anymore. That's the way this works. When you have a regime change, you have a scheme change, culture change. May go to 3-4 defense, may go to 4-3, whatever it is. You can change all kinds of things up. But I want these guys to make the decision, say, you know what? He played 4 good games in December. He's got to come back. No, what does he think? What does Dimitrov think? Or whoever takes the job think? That's what I want. I don't want Woody Johnson involved in none of this. Because that's where the problems start. When you force somebody to inherit things or you change their plan, then it's not your football guys making football decisions. It's your punk-ass owner doing it. And I don't want that.
Yeah, speaking of quarterback changes, I guess the Falcons just benched Kirk Cousins officially.
Yeah, that was inevitable.
But Armin, there you go. But yeah, man, I mean, I'm with you. There's no player above the team. Not Garrett Wilson, not Gardner, not Rodgers, not Devontae. If the new GM wants to move on or go in a different direction or whatever, I'm not gonna, fight him on that if I'm
Yeah.
Woody Johnson. You know
Now,
what I mean?
yeah, we have two comments that are pretty much similar. So for Strickland, unless you're willing to blow it up, trade Garrett, Brees, Sauce, etc., you may as well keep Rodgers as you were too talented to tank, but not good enough to win with Tyrod or a rookie. I disagree with that. You can let Rodgers, you can cut Rodgers and move on and still find ways to win next year. I don't think that's out of the question. You don't have to blow it all up. If Rodgers doesn't return, you don't have to blow it all up. You can still find ways to be very competitive next year, don't you think?
Yeah, but I'll say this too. It's like even with Rodgers, that doesn't necessarily give us the best chance to win. We have 4 wins this year, and 3 of them are against horrible teams.
With
You
an
know?
offense completely catered to him, that what he wants to do. So now you want to hire a new coach with a new coordinator that you're going to what do? Cater your offense to him for 1 year and then cater to the next guy that you actually want to run your offense with? I don't want to mold my scheme or my team to Rodgers for 1 year. That's all it's going to be. It's not going to be a 2-year plan. It's basically a 1-year Band-Aid, try to win games. Like, to me, to sell my soul Rodgers for 9 wins next year makes absolutely no sense. It doesn't make any sense to me. Because it's not about 1 year. It's about the next 5 years of being a winning organization. That's the goal now. Like, oh, you can't blow it up. You can't rebuild. Guess what? The Jets are in deep trouble right now. They're 4-10. They have a lot of holes. They have strength. Your offensive line looks a lot better with Olu. Your defensive line has to be rebuilt. You need 2 safeties. You probably need another receiver. You need a lot of things. But you can't, we had our 2-year run with Rodgers. It didn't work out. I don't want to keep adding up one more year. Maybe next year. At some point, you'll be like, you know what? It didn't work. If that's what the direction the team wants to go, like the new staff, cool. But it's not like he doesn't come back. Well, next year we're not going to win. You're not going to win 8-9 games. You can still win other quarters. He's not the only solution.
Yeah, he's really not. I mean, is it fair to say if Tyrod started from from the beginning that we would have a similar record, or would we be winless?
No, I mean, it's just, and you also think about it this way. There's a lot of teams in the NFL winning with average quarterback play. You know how they're doing that? Great defense, great coaching, and a running game. The Jets haven't had any of that in how long? The defense has been good, but they're just so poorly coached. We don't even know what this team could do. Look at Russell Wilson. Look what he's doing there. I mean, look at Bo Nix, who's coming on now. Teams find ways to win with just good talent. You don't need to be great, but we're so used to being so bad. We think he's our only savior. He's our only chance to win. That's just not true. You get a legitimate staff and they can actually coach you up and scheme guys open and play smart, physical, quality football, penalty-free or not stupid. It makes it huge. Your 4 wins are now 7. Now you're 8. Get a couple breaks, you're at 9 without Rodgers. It can be done, dude.
Yeah, dude, that's like I feel like the definition of coaching, right?
That's what
Developing
it is.
players, putting them in positions to have success, understanding your roster, understanding what you're good at, what you suck at. You know what I mean? The coaches, God, it's so backwards with the Jets. It's like it's like the coaches weigh the team down, in my opinion.
100%.
It should not be like that. It should be like the coaches dragging the roster forward and taking maximizing the talents that we have, maximizing the players that we already have. You kind of felt like we saw bits and pieces of that. Like Todd Bowles' defense was never stacked with a ton of talent. Rex Ryan towards the tail end, his defenses were not stacked with talent, but you kind of felt like, hey, these guys are emerging. They're coming onto the scene. Now, of course, we need that from a head coach and a full team, not just defense. But with this staff, it's like, is anyone actually playing up to their potential?
Nope. No.
Or could you throw, a different coach in the mix? And is it is it realistic to say, you know what, this given player, whether it's Garrett, whether it's whoever, he still has room to improve. He could get a little bit better.
No, bro. And you see, the thing is, I love watching film breakdown from really excellent analysts, and they'll break down, just for example, Sauce Gardner. They're like, Sauce Gardner is a great player he's used bad techniques, fundamentals going backwards, all these different things. And why is that? It's coaching. Or there's different things. You look at it, you look at some of the schemes of the wide receivers, 2 wide receivers running into each other. What in the hell are they doing? You see, there's literally analysts every week saying this team is terribly coached, that they're surprised to even complete passes sometimes. Or you look at the blocking schemes. You're like, what in the hell are they doing? They don't know what they're even doing. They're calling audibles. They don't know what the audibles even are. So you look at all that, you say, all right, you clean that up, you're going to get an instant impact, and you're going to start playing better quality football. and you add in some more players. There's ways to win games, but it's not like, to me, next year's not about Rodgers or bust. We don't have Rodgers, we're not winning. I don't believe that. I genuinely don't believe that because this team does have
neither do
talent.
Because
So,
even if you have Rodgers, it doesn't guarantee anything.
nope.
4 wins.
Yeah,
and
the other thing
we're
too,
rolling with Rodgers players that he wants, and the scheme that he wants, and the coaches that he wants.
I understand, but so it's right now, it's December 17th. Then who? Well, right now you have Tyrod Taylor. Well, he gets hurt too much. Right now it's good enough, but you can bring in Justin Fields. You can figure it out. You don't need a first-round draft pick. You find ways to get players in here and work it out. And you scheme up points, you scheme up plays, and it's just, I'm not selling my soul for 9 wins next year. I'm just not. It's stupid. That's what these band-aids are what get you in a position to begin with. It is. And then it's like the other thing nobody wants to talk about. It's like, well, I want to win next year. I don't really care what the impact is. Okay, in 26 and 27, when your cap hit is friggin' enormous because you sold your soul for 1 more year of Rodgers and Adams, then what's your complaint could be? Well, the cap hit went up. Like the salary cap went up. You're just delaying the inevitable. At some point, you got to say, it didn't work out. There's a better way to do this. It may not be perfect early on, but instead of worrying about 1 year, you're worrying about 4 or 5 years and actually making a legitimate run to win a championship. Not this half-ass stuff.
Yeah. And that's kind of like the big argument, right? And I think like now's the time to do that. New GM, new head coach, new, completely new coaching staff.
Yep.
Might as well, analyze the roster and make your changes now. So you're at level 1, right? Like all this kind of like newness at once. And now you start building as opposed to certain areas of the team are, we're going to roll with Rodgers. We're going to roll with Devontae, but we're going to, we got to completely rehaul the defense. And it just kind of be this, like, I want everything on one timeline.
No, I'm with you, dude. It's just sometimes you got to rip the Band-Aid off. You got to just be like, all right, here we are. But like I said, literally every team every year there's surprises. Look at Sam Darnold this year, where he's playing. Look at the way Baker Mayfield's playing down in Tampa. It's not like you hire a quality staff to find good players. You put them in a system that makes you be better, and you score points. The Jets make football look hard. It shouldn't be this hard. There's average quarterbacks all throughout the NFL doing good things, minus the Jets. Minshew had a run. Like, look at all these quarterbacks are making runs with little, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to have all-star quarterback play. We may not compete with the Ravens and Bills next year, but a lot better than friggin' 4 wins in December.
But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. But I think one thing, dude, like, I don't, and this is just my opinion. Even if we had, it's not like the way I'm kind of viewing it is not Jets keep Rodgers and we win and we're winning now, like in that win now mode, or we get rid of Rodgers and we have to rebuild and suck and lose. It's like we have Rodgers now and we have 4 wins.
Yep.
So whether he plays or does not play doesn't guarantee the Jets wins or anything. It's just, expensive 41-year-old quarterback. Maybe he could be really, really good, with, more time removed from the injuries. Maybe not. Maybe he gets hurt again. But
and the other thing,
I
too,
don't
is
know, man.
it's a quarterback that's been in the same offense forever. So you have a 41-year-old quarterback learning a new offense, and you're trying to fit your scheme to him for 1 year. He ain't playing 2 more years. Like, it's just like I respect him. I think he played. It was fun to watch. You see the chemistry with Devontae. And this is a good question too. Is there a scenario where it's possible to keep Devontae Adams and Rodgers leaves? I think there is, but that comes down to who you hire and who the next quarterback's going to be, and if you give him more money, because he's due like $37 million, I think, right?
Yeah, he's owed a lot. I mean, if you want to just go like down the route of like friends and connections and stuff like that, it's looking like the Saints are going to move off of Derek Carr. If you want to keep Adams around, and kind of, sit in that we're going to still try to compete as opposed to blowing it up.
Yeah, and Afram cut Rodgers and Adams post 8-1. You gained over $40 million in cap space, as opposed to bringing them back, and you're adding on a huge cap hit in 26 and 27. So it's just, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't like you. If you want to hold on to the Rodgers dream for 1 more year, good for you. I'm not that person. I just have a longer vision, and I think there's, like you said, there's no guarantees in bringing back and staying healthy all year. Everybody's saying Tyrod's always hurt. Rodgers has been banged up for 3 years now, right? It's not like he's been the epitome of health either. And he's only getting older.
Yeah, I agree.
So the other thing is, I like talking this about because we had an enormous argument last night. A lot of the people calling in too about Brian Flores, where it's like he's Adam Gase 2.0. I'm like, I don't think that's necessarily true. But what is your response to that?
Well, what's the connection outside of the Dolphins?
Like you got fired at the Dolphins, had a problem with players. Well, mostly Tua. Didn't win a lot. I mean, he won 2 out of 3 years, but didn't win a lot. Not an offensive guy. Like they just said, it's just another failed experience. Like it's just not a good candidate. And I'm like, I think that's completely false. I think he's a great coach. But you got it.
Well, I think one thing that we gotta kind of recognize with the Jets right now, it's like the perfect candidate just does not exist. We can't go out and just, we're not going to get the notification that the Jets are going to be hiring Andy Reid.
Nope.
Or hiring Sean McVay. There's, if you're hiring someone who, I don't know, the wish, because I'll talk to my buddies and it's like the wish list is just like out of control. Like I'm talking to my one friend all the time about it. And he's like, he always says the same thing. He's just like, I want a coach that's been a head coach before. Yep. And I want an offensive guy. I want someone who is not like Rex, is not like Saleh, not like Ulbrich, not like Todd Bowles. I want someone who can develop a quarterback. Cool. So let's use your checklist and go down the list. And when I start going down the list, he gets pissed and he gets mad at me. And he's just like, I don't want this guy. This guy sucks, man.
Arthur Smith?
Yeah, I'll say, hey, Arthur Smith.
Yep.
He's an offensive guy. We're seeing what's going on in Pittsburgh. He has head coaching experience. He's like, no, get out of here. I'm like, oh, how come? Well, he got fired in Atlanta, man. He wasn't all that great. I'm like, all right, well, you're not going, unless you're pulling a coach out of retirement, you're going to have to bring a coach in if you want that NFL experience, that head coaching experience. He's going to have to be fired at some point unless he just quit.
Yep.
And so, another guy, again, just kind of just rattling off names. Matt Nagy. Nope, don't want him. Not good in Chicago. He was fired. It just wasn't all that great. Okay, John Gruden. No, he's been out of football for way too long. And you just go down the list of all the different guys that check the criteria. And I think no matter who the Jets hire, there's going to be a subset of Jets fans that aren't going to like it. And that's totally cool.
Yep.
I think the goal should be, it should not be like an Adam Gase hire where the majority of the fan base is just like, this is not going to work. I think one thing with Adam Gase, like one of the reasons why it didn't work out was A, the team wasn't all that great, but B, like I'm talking from a talent perspective, but B, it was like he jumped right to the Jets, got fired, jumped right to the Jets. And I think there just wasn't a lot of time to maybe reflect on what went wrong. There wasn't a lot of time to analyze the Jets roster, not a lot of time to build or, acquire players. If we think back to that time, classic Jets here, right? We were talking about this before. They hired Gase. They fire McCagnon a couple months later in the summer. Gase takes over as interim general manager. And then he hires the GM in Joe Douglas. So you kind of have that backwards kind of approach. And then, once the offseason hit, when they went 7-9, I kind of felt like the move that should have been made was parting ways with Adam Gase. And it's like, all right, well, Gase hired Douglas. Does Douglas fire his guy? Nope. And so he's sticking around for one more season, which was the tank year.
Yep.
Where we ended up getting Zach Wilson. So I think really there's not going to be the perfect candidate.
But Flores, I think Flores, if you go by, he did a lot of good things in Miami. Then he went to the Minnesota Vikings. He's an excellent defensive coordinator. And you got to think he's worked his way back up. He's rebuilt his image. You got to figure any competent person that's motivated to get another job again is going to be thoroughly prepared, learned his lesson. It will have a plan saying, listen, okay, I see the comments. He fired, 4 OCs and did all this or whatever it was. You got to figure, okay, this will be my offensive coordinator. This is what I want. You got to figure it's not always going to be the same thing. You learn, you evolve, you become better. And if you have your chance, you got to prove it. But I think he's a worthy candidate.
Yeah, I mean, dude, good coaches get fired, man. Andy Reid was fired. Bill Belichick was fired. There's Dan Quinn has been fired. I I think Flores is a good choice. I think the whole Tua thing is just blown out of proportion. I think it happened. I'm not saying it didn't happen,
100%.
but I don't want to just look at that one instance, that one relationship that didn't go great, and label Flores as someone who just can't get along with players. Because you listen to the peers, the personnel in Minnesota, they freaking love the guy. They don't want him to leave. You know what I mean? And
Well,
it's
just
not
like
like the Vikings defense is all that. It's not like they have stars all over the place.
Yeah, and the other thing too is you got to think about like Aaron Glenn, same thing where he's a defensive coordinator. Players love him too. Until this week, this is where it just gets funny. Like Aaron Glenn, the hot shot candidate, love him. The Bills get or the Lions give a ton of points. Oh, Aaron Glenn blows. No, they have a ton of injuries, but it's like it just shows how fickle everybody is. Where he went from being a top candidate to like, nope, he can't coach. That's just ridiculous.
But like one thing I also feel like gets lost in this whole like coordinator to head coach promotion. Yes, of course it matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the like the details are like the minutia of a coordinator's specific unit. So for example, like, oh, Aaron Glenn's defense just got torched, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now he's like not, or hypothetically, he's not like maybe our top choice anymore, right? Because his defense sucks. Being a head coach, like I'm not even like defensive scheme, defensive production is not like in my top 3 or 4 or 5 things that I'm like concerned about. I'm concerned about, culture. Can you lead players? Can you lead men? Can you build a staff around you? Can you create an environment of winning football foundation? Right now, of course, a lot goes into it, but do you have those traits? You could talk to a Mike Tomlin. The answer is yes. You could talk to an Andy Reid or Sean McVay or Sean McDermott, and the answer is yes. Harbaugh, Sean Payton, the other Harbaugh, right? All these different coaches. Dan Campbell, right? I think it's a mistake to just look at, all right, let's just look at the defensive ranks for the defensive coordinator. It's for example, like I think it'd be a mistake to say, all right, I want Liam Cohen because the Bucks have the best offensive line of football. They're a top offense, and that's it. Like if Liam Cohen can't build a culture, I don't want him. If Liam Cohen cannot like set if he can't hold players accountable, if he doesn't bring any discipline to the table, if he's not a leader, then I don't want him. I don't care how good the offense is. You know what I mean? So that's the whole thing when it, and I don't mean to like go on like a little rant or anything. It just,
I agree with you.
It just like,
you need a leader of men.
How many people were concerned about Dan Campbell's offensive rank in New Orleans? He wasn't even the offensive coordinator. He just provided great qualities of a head coach. Mike Vrabel, right? Everyone's talking about Mike Vrabel. His defense was not good in Houston before he got the Titans job, but he provided great leadership qualities and culture qualities, and having that former player experience, having that Patriot that Patriot way instilled in him. Like those are the things that got him the job in Tennessee. It wasn't like, oh, well, we're, the number 1 scoring defense and stuff like that. Like you could find those guys. You can hire a Wink Martindale. You can hire a Jim Schwartz. You can hire all these different, bring Rex back, right? You can hire like the defensive minds to like do the schemes and the play calling and stuff. But it's just so far down the checklist for me. It's like the culture is the number 1 thing. And if Aaron Glenn can bring a culture better than Liam Cohen, better than all these different guys, then that's the guy that I want.
You need a true leader of men. That's what you need. They walk in, they get instant respect, and they give you credibility, and there's a lot of accountability, and you have a conviction of what you're doing, and that's the way you're going to do it. And like that's especially this organization that's been pushed around in so many different ways where they're insecure, they're incompetent. Where you come in, listen, because we get this the conversation all the time about Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's going to ask for a trade next year. Well, okay, you need your next coach to come in that's respected, that looks him in the eye and said, listen, I know how to fix this, man, and I will fix this. You stick with me, you're going to get what you want. I guarantee it. And because I've done it before, I know what I'm doing here. Sit back and watch. I'm not going to talk about it with some stupid, I almost cursed again, with a stupid T-shirt. I'm going to show you with actions on the field, with the way we play physical football, smart football, explosive football. The players, they need that. They need that leadership. They don't have any leadership right now. They're a rudderless ship. So it's not like, well, I have a great defense. Nobody cares. Can you run our team on offense and defense? Can you manage the clock? The guy has 3 penalties in a row. Do you pull him off the field? If you see things happening in practice, do you pull him off the field? You keep encouraging it. Those are all things that this young team that's now all they know is losing is looking for. And they'll know like this, dude. They know if you're the guy within seconds. Because the minute they see little cracks, well, just like the last guy, man, you're just like solid. You're just like this. Like it's going to happen like that. So you need that powerful personality that just walks in and commands attention and commands respect right off the bat.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, couldn't have said it any better myself.
That's why we're friends, man.
Heck yeah, man.
You get me all fired up.
Well, dude, these are important conversations.
No, and the John Gruden thing is interesting. It seems like people either love him or hate him. There's no like middle ground with Gruden. I personally would have no problem whatsoever with John Gruden taking over his team. Not at all. I wouldn't give him full power. I'd have a general manager above him that actually work in tandem. I wouldn't hate Gruden at all, dude. I wouldn't.
Well, we were talking about Derek Carr before. If he becomes available and Gruden's the head coach, I could see the Jets if Rodgers walks away.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to anything at this point, but like, it's just, I don't think we're in a spot to say, well, if you've had a winning aspect of your career, I'm not going to say, no, I can't interview. Just not. I'm like, you know what? Worth the shot. We see what happens. I think what's going to get real interesting is now you have 3 interviews this week. I'm curious to see the aftermath of the interviews as you go forward. Do candidates start backing out? Like, oh, you know what? Did an interview. Not, it's going to be like, remove my name from consideration. When that starts happening, then you wonder what's going on behind the scenes. Is Rodgers being forced on them? Is Woody not giving them the power they need? Like the next 3 weeks, it'll be really interesting from a Jets perspective is if they start losing candidates or things aren't picking up steam, then it's like, all right, this job that we're hoping is kind of, welcoming may not be so.
Yeah, it should be interesting, man, with the stories. I am excited about the Louis Riddick interview.
Yeah, he's intriguing, man, because he has full command, man. Like he gets your attention when he talks. Like that's what you want. He'll own the room.
He's not going to be a guy that like they interview and he's like, yeah, I don't know about that. I don't really have a plan about that, or I'm not really sure about this player. It's like, what are your thoughts on this? Boom, here's your answer.
But that's
no
what the
BS,
Jets need.
Straight to the point, straight shooter.
The Jets can't have guys and get pushed around anymore. Like you need to clean it up and get respect back. They've lost respect and credibility on so many different levels that you got to build it back now. You do it with guys who know what they're doing. That can talk it, like can be about it. And be like, listen, this is it. And then when they get asked whatever question, no, this is why we're doing it. You know what I mean? Like right now, the Jets can't defend themselves. They're lost. So it is going to be so interesting to see what happens. I can't wait. Like the interviews are exciting. And then you're watching the game. Like I don't care about the games anymore. I just want the season to be over because I want to get into the whole coaching thing.
Yeah, me too.
Now, what I saw one thing was asking what we thought about Phil Savage. I mean, I don't think anything about Phil Savage. I think he's gone. Once they get the new staff in here, he's out of here.
Yeah,
right?
I don't think he gets the full-time gig.
No. And then Mike Westhoff was awesome. He's definitely a football guy. And Ulbrich, we need to put the nail in the coffin and get rid of the Ulbrich. Ulbrich will be gone at the end of the year, man. I think he is so far in over his head where, it's just he's like a punching bag now. He can't even he's just trying to just endure it. A couple more weeks, get out of here and get a whole new fresh start. Unfortunately, this is probably ruining his career as a head coach, but he hopefully can be a coordinator somewhere else.
Yeah, he should land for sure a job next. I mean, because in his role as DC, he did a great job.
Yeah, he should have gave it up though, and he should give up play calling, I think. But
yeah, it's clear the job is just too big.
Now this guy I like. A lot of people don't like him, but I like Monken. What do you think about him?
Yeah, I would take him. He's probably not my first choice anymore.
Is he top 5?
He'd probably be coming in right around that 5th spot if he is.
Tell me what. Oh, you down on him? Tell me why you're down on him. Let's hear this. Killing my dreams, man.
Killing your dream. I didn't know you were such a big.
No, I'm like kidding. Tell me why he's not high on your list.
Well, tell me why he's high on your list.
Innovative guy, offensive guy, a lot of experience, well respected. I made a case to hire him last time you interviewed here. I mean,
yeah.
That's like, well, why? Why are you down on him?
It's not that I'm down on him. It's just I think there's other candidates that I would rather have. I think. Again, when we talk about, NFL head coaching experience, setting a standard, providing discipline, things of that nature. I just don't have, I can't 100% check those boxes off of Todd Monken because we haven't seen it yet.
Right.
Now, yes, he was over at Southern Miss and he's been in Tampa and he's, obviously would be coming in from Baltimore, which are all positives. But I do I think right now, and again, this is just my opinion, just as a fan from afar, I think maybe a Brian Flores I would feel more comfortable with the culture leadership aspects.
Okay.
As opposed to Monken. It's not anything against Monken. Maybe Monken is better than Flores in that regard.
Right.
Here's a name though that I want to throw out at you. And this would be similar to Adam Gase.
You started smiling. When you start smiling, no bad things are going to happen.
Well, I was thinking about this last night, man. Because I was, thinking about just how the past couple of weeks have gone, the drama, the storylines, the kind of media notions, which I would argue are facts. Can't win in the cold. If the Dolphins fire Mike McDaniel, what are your thoughts on that?
What's funny is minus this their recent demise, I thought he was a really good coach, man. I think they started losing because Tua was out. He was an innovative coach. They played good football. They were playing winning football, high-flying football, but then you said they couldn't win big games in the cold. Tua got hurt. This season kind of fell apart. But, man, I don't think his vibe would work here, dude. I really don't think it would. I think his mannerisms, the way he handles himself, I think he'll get eaten alive. A little bit of adversity here, get run out of town. I don't think it would work. But what do you think?
I think there's probably worse options. He's probably not up at the top of the list, but he's worth an interview.
I mean, as an offensive coordinator, in an instant, I would do that.
Yeah, but I could see Mike McDaniel getting head coaching interviews if he were to get fired.
Yeah, that would be a tough sell here, man. Walking out in his little outfits on this, he get eaten alive with this staff, man, or with this fan base.
Dude, his defensive coordinator, Anthony Weaver, was a top 3 finalist for the Washington job a year ago that was headed by Rick Spielman.
Oh boy.
And he's like a solid guy, 4-man fronts, tough player coach type of guy.
But so now they're thinking that would be a Dolphin thing to do. They fire Greer and keep McDaniel. That'd be something the Dolphins would do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think Greer has done a pretty good job of just accumulating talent. I mean, they can't keep everyone, and you can argue the financials and losing, specific guys because they can't afford them. But I think they've done a pretty good job. When you look at the Dolphins roster, they have, a lot of good players.
Do you think the Patriots could fire Mayo for Vrabel?
It's a good question, man. I honestly would not be surprised if that happened. I'm not a big Mayo guy, dude. I don't really think he's.
That'd be a power move there too. That'd be wild.
Early on, I was more sold, but just as the season has gone on, I don't know. I think if you have if the season ends and you get a feeling that Vrabel, would be down to coach New England, I could see it happening.
All right, so now this is December 17th. I like doing these checkups with you because we're going to do a recap a month from now as your list changes and how accurate you are. Your top 3 list for coaches as of December 17th. See if anything changes right now.
Man, so I would say not in any specific order.
No. You got to rank them.
All right.
I thought that was a solid answer right there. What you turn into Saleh now with this not?
Well, there's a lot of guys that I like, and there's guys that would be considered realistic, and some guys that wouldn't be considered realistic.
Or we'll make a top 5. We'll give you more flexibility.
Top 5. All right. We'll go. Man, sorry, I keep coughing. I think Vrabel's up at the top. I think he would, come in and check a lot of boxes. I think he's, someone who would bring leadership, bring accountability, all the things that we're talking about, NFL experience. He would not be pushed around by Woody Johnson. Time-tested systems. I would feel pretty good about it. Although you can maybe argue, would he keep Downing and Carter and stuff like that?
Then I'd fire him the next day. You're fired. You're out.
Yeah, dude. So that's the only thing with Vrabel. And also, I don't want the Jets to necessarily sell their soul for him.
Well, then if you keep Carter and Downing, you keep Rodgers too. You keep the band intact. It's one big happy Jets family.
Well, that's what I'm saying, dude. Because if they hire Vrabel, I don't see them rebuilding. That's like my only hesitant, or like my only hesitation, because I lean towards the rebuild.
Okay. All right,
Um,
Vrabel won.
well, Vrabel up there. I would, because you know me, man. You know I'm a big Brian Flores guy.
Listen, man, this is not the Salah waffle show. We're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Who is number one for you?
Well, it's a big question, man. December 17th.
You're a big time content creator. What are we doing here? Everybody, this whole chat is looking for your insight here. I'm just like the question guy.
All right, fine. If you want the exact rankings, realistically, or just
no like Ben Johnson nonsense. It's never gonna happen.
All right. What about Zach Taylor if he gets fired? I don't think he's gonna get fired, but if he gets fired, he's in my top 5.
I think he's getting fired, to be honest with you.
See, I don't think Brown is like makes rash moves like that. I think he's gonna give his coaches time after one bad year.
And Joe Burrow probably has a lot to say too. He loves him apparently. So
yeah.
All right, so just so you know, we did this last night with our callers, and I fired almost every one of them. Right now, you're on that list, dude, because we want concise answers.
All right, fine. I would probably say right now Brian Flores is my number 1 candidate.
Okay.
Do you want me to break it all down for you too, or do you just want names?
1 through 5 is good.
Okay, I would say Brian Flores 1, Mike Vrabel 2. Man, I'm a lot higher on Liam Cohen than a lot of people are, but I do have my questions. I would probably say, geez, man, it's tough. I would say if one of these offensive guys get fired, they would get it. Like if Zach Taylor gets fired, he'd probably come in at spot number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Glenn's in the top 5, but that, is a caveat, because if he comes in and they don't feel like he can handle it, or they don't feel like he has that leadership, that it's not like the defense is blowing me away.
Right.
But I do think, him being a Parcells guy, and I was actually going to ask you about Aaron Glenn too, because if we think back, dude, he was a player while Tannenbaum was here.
Mm-hmm.
Tannenbaum hired him as a pro scout before in the past.
Yep.
He was a top 3 finalist for the Washington job, so Spielman knows him well. Former Jet. Seems like players love him.
Got ties to a lot of good coaches.
Yeah, comes from the Sean Payton coaching tree as well.
And big Parcells guy, dude. Big Parcells guy.
Is Glenn in your top 3 to 5?
What sucks about it is I'm a huge fan of him as a player, and I watch his career just develop and grow as a coach. He checks all the boxes for me, other than being the first-time head coach. That's the only thing that bothers me about him. I think he's going to be great. I really do. I love him. I don't want to see him come here and get eaten up by the Jets, though. That's the only problem I have. Like, I wish he had a job before this somewhere else. Like, I just fear that first-time coordinator thing. But, then it's like, well, he's only as good as his offensive coordinator. He's a very, very intelligent guy, man. I think he obviously recognizes he's a defensive guy. He's going to have a quality staff. I think he's a really good candidate, dude, especially because he knows the New York market. He knows the Jets. But he also has the ties to excellent resources to make very good decisions. Like if Bill Parcells is on your freaking speed dial, or probably Sean Payton, but guys like that, where you have a resource, like, all right, I'm doing this. How do you help me? Or what can I do? Like, that's invaluable, dude. He's done it the right way in terms of climbing the ladder and learning and growing. So he is in my top 5. It's that first time head coach thing that bothers me, but I like him, dude. But I'm biased. I literally have his jersey. I have all kinds of stuff,
Yeah, dude, that's freaking sick.
But what do you think about Spagnuolo is really interesting too, where he keeps recreating that defense every year with the Chiefs. They keep winning Super Bowls. The players love him.
The players develop too with Kansas City, which I like.
So he's a failed first-time head coach, but you got to figure if you're going to say Rex Ryan can get better, or Brian Flores can get better, or anybody else can get better, why can't Spagnuolo?
Yeah, it's fair. I mean, he's a veteran mind. He's been around the game for a long, long time. I mean, there's so many different offensive minds that you can just pluck from the Chiefs staff, to kind of fill in the gaps with what you want to do on the offensive side of the football. Eric B is out there. You could bring him in. Doug Peterson has, Spags connections. I think Spags will be a really valuable, again, kind of connection guy. Like, I don't see, because he's failed before as a head coach, and because he's with Kansas City and has rebuilt his image, I don't see a situation where he would accept the job and say, I have no idea what I'm doing, or I don't know how to build a staff. I don't know how to delegate. I think he only had 1 year with St. Louis, if I'm not mistaken.
It was a
1 or
disaster.
2 years. So it's not like he had, 8 years or anything. It's not like a Vrabel situation.
He knows the market too. He knows New York market. He was with the Giants. He knows this. He knows what this area is all about. Nothing will you won't get caught by surprise with anything. And
yeah, like
good.
Sorry, go ahead.
Good.
No, I was gonna say, just trying to envision myself like getting the notification on my phone. New York Jets agreed to terms with Steve Spagnuolo on a 4-year contract to be the head coach. I'd have confidence in that. I would look at that and say, solid.
Now, Kingsbury's an interesting guy, but to me, Kingsbury's not realistic because I think he's, it's just, I don't think he comes here. I think he's going to go with his quarterback. He's going to want the quarterback, that offensive mind. There's jobs with quarterbacks available. To me, you know what I mean? Like, you could see him going to Jacksonville or Chicago before he comes here, right?
Yeah, I think Chicago makes the most sense.
Yeah, so do I. But Spagnuolo is interesting, man. We've talked about him a couple of times already. And again, he's been with Andy Reid. I mean, he is very, very well respected. Players absolutely love him. So,
and nobody talks about him too.
But he's done interviews saying he wants another chance to coach. He said it before, openly said, you know what? And all they keep doing is winning at Kansas City. And this year more than ever, it's on his defense. They're overcoming injuries. They're doing all kinds of stuff. And week in and week out, they're finding ways to win. So, and if you're looking for a pedigree, dude, look what his is. I mean, Jesus, like you couldn't really ask for anything more.
Yeah, I mean, to come over from like a well-ran team like this to watch Andy Reid do it, game planning, Super Bowls, playoffs, high expectations, handling it, developing players, head coaching experience, ability to build a staff, veteran mind, can work with multiple players on the defense side of the football. You don't feel like he's like locked into one specific system. Knows the area, like you said. I think, he could. It is realistic.
Now, the funny thing is, Rex Ryan's kind of gone off into the sunset right now. He's kind of on the back page again. He did it. He shot his shot, and I think he got shot down because now he's getting kind of quiet again.
Yeah, I mean, it's just tough because we don't have a GM. I think if we had a GM, Rex would have been interviewed.
All right. Well, we covered a lot. We're both sick, so we'll let you go before you kill me. I promised you an hour. Now it's an hour and 20 minutes. But
it's all good, dude. I always have fun on these.
And we missed last week, too, so we got to make up for it. So we thank you guys all for your time. As news keeps breaking, go to his channel because he has all kinds of – dude, I love your channel because when I don't know a candidate, I listen to all your stuff first. I'm like, all right, now I got a feel for him. Then I can do more research. I love it, dude. It's just – you do, like, legit stuff, man. It's just such great content.
Dude, I appreciate that, man. Thank you. That means a lot.
No, I do, literally, especially the GM stuff where I'm like, I know enough to be dangerous just to argue with you. But then I had to like research stuff. I watch your video first. I'm like, all right, now I got to feel. Now I dig more. So, and I love, dude, the thing you point out with like the Brian Flores coaching stuff. I start looking for his videos all over the place now. Like I'm becoming a fan of Brian Flores now. So
dude, Flores is cool, man. Flores is cool. I think the Tua stuff is a little overblown. And also, it's again not saying it didn't happen, but he's a smart guy. He could look back on these things just like anyone could if they ever got fired in any sort of line of work. You pick up on stuff. You know what? Maybe I should change that. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I was fired from being 20 minutes late to work every day. You know what? My next opportunity, I got to make sure I'm going to wake up 20 minutes earlier so I get there on time. It's not, when we're talking about these NFL coaches, some of them are stuck in their ways, but some of them aren't. Some of them will adapt.
Yep, 100%. So we got a big game on Sunday, Jets-Rams, which we talked thoroughly about tonight. We give you a full preview tonight, which I'm sure you guys all enjoyed. But in all seriousness, as I'm sure next week will be more rumors, and I have a feeling we'll be talking about a lot more next week. So everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy the game. Thank you for all the support and for all the listens on our podcast networks. We appreciate it. And as always, go Jets, right? We're back. We're not tanking anymore.
Heck yeah, man. Big win over Jacksonville. Thanks, Phoenix. I appreciate that, man.
We definitely need some chicken soup. Have a great night, everybody. We'll talk to you next week. Oh, it'll be 7:00 next week on his channel. We had to adjust this week. Cool. So see you guys later.